And oh god, I will review the fourth one eventually. I really don't want to have to do it, but I'm going to because it's part of the series. With my praise for the original Halloweentown trilogy duly noted in the last video, going into Halloweentown, Return to Halloweentown, let me give you my history with it first. After the original trilogy had finished, I, assumed that they were done. Obviously, because the story, as I said in the last video, wrapped up perfectly, came full circle. So I was thinking, okay, Halloweentown's done, there's no more movies. But a couple years later, 2 years in fact, they released a fourth movie called Return to Halloweentown. Strangely, the title was actually the working title for the second movie. Strange. But anyway, when I saw it, I was a little disappointed with it. For several reasons. Like I said in the last video, which I will list in this one. But basically the plot is that Marnie is going off to college in Halloweentown, and she basically discovers this box that is a family heirloom called the Gift, which will give the wearer the ability to, I guess, bend people to their will and whatnot. And so the people who basically run the school are part of this league called the Dominion, and they try and get Marnie to basically give them power over Halloweentown because of this supposed ancient prophecy about that blah 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 power over the Dominion, over Halloweentown, yada yada. I don't really care because the plot of the movie was boring. It's basically what it is Marnie's trying to go around, figure this out, and she eventually stops them, basically. That is my general synopsis because I really didn't give a crap about this movie. After seeing this movie again today for this video, I couldn't give a crap for this movie. Because the movie is so boring, so pointless, and it wasn't even needed. In the last video, I basically praised the original 3 movies and said that I had very little nitpicks. This video is going to be all nitpick. I have very little praise for this movie. Now, let me get the obvious thing out of the way. The 2 leads in these movies, are not present. Well, Debbie Reynolds is given a 2-scene cameo, which, it's one of those, screw you, Disney. And an even bigger screw you to Disney is they recast Kimberly J. Brown as Marnie. Double screw you to Disney. It's like, why would you recast your lead? It's one of the dumbest things you could ever do in your career. Especially when Kimberly J. Brown has even stated in interviews when people have asked her about the movie that she was fully available for the shoot. But for some reason, Disney decided to go in a stupid direction and recast the role. Okay. Then their next move was to downgrade Debbie Reynolds to a 2-scene cameo. Okay. Now, the cast returns from the last 3 movies, well, 2 of them, basically. 3 if you count Debbie Reynolds' cameo. And then you got Judith Hoag, J. Paul Zimmerman, and Lucas Grabeel in this one again. Not surprised. So basically, to the nitpick. I do have a list of stuff that I didn't like about this movie, and I won't go off that list. Like I said, it lacks the 2 leads that Kimberly J. Brown has replaced, and Debbie Reynolds is downgraded to a cameo. This movie tries to, I guess pay off a relationship that was never set up to begin with, because in the last movie, Ethan and Marnie, and I actually made a boo-boo in the last video, Lucas Grable's character was actually Ethan Dalloway, not Edgar Dalloway. I didn't catch that until rewatching the video. I apologize for the confusion. Michael Flynn was Edgar Dalloway, and Lucas Grable was Ethan Dalloway. I'm sorry if I'm confused people. Anyway, they try to set up this relationship between, or should I say pay off this relationship between Ethan and Marnie, which was never really set up to begin with. They didn't even have any romantic tension in the last movie. So it's like, why would you try to force this relationship in here when they barely said 2 words to each other in the last movie? And speaking of relationship, whatever happened to Marnie's boy from the last movie? I mean, if they broke up, fine. At least say it. I mean, at least with, I know a lot of people are going to hate this reference, this, whatever, but at least within Transformers Dark of the Moon, when they wrote Michaela out of the movie, they at least explained her absence. That she had dumped Sam between movies. Okay, that was explained. The absence for Cody in this movie? Never addressed. I mean, kind of weird. But for all intents and purposes, this movie basically ignores the plot of the last 3 movies. Although they do try and mention Ethan's father every now and then, just to say, this movie's relevant to the other 3. The villain's motives are completely stupid. They just want to rule Halloweentown. Yeah, like that. Like, haven't seen that before. Like, in the last 3 movies. This movie has no one central main antagonist like the last 3 movies did. Because in the first movie you had Calabar, the second one you had Cal, and then the third you had Edgar Dalloway. This movie we have the Dominion, which apparently is a group of 7 witches and wizards, or warlocks in Halloweentown, not Harry Potter, but it's a group of witches and warlocks who are hell-bent on taking over Halloweentown. Okay. And just to connect us into the original 3 movies, they shoehorn, or they railroad in a teeny tiny subplot about Edgar being part of this gang, or whatever. Okay. Never mentioned in the last movie. Oh, and something else never mentioned in the last movie is this so-called prophecy. Aggie never brought it up in the last 3 movies, so why are we just shoving it in here now? Let's see. People have always wondered, like, what was the family's last name? People were wondering why in the last 3 movies were they known as Cromwells, and this one's they're known as Pipers. I'm going to settle this debate for you people, and I don't mean this rudely, but their last name was always Piper, because that was the last name of Marnie's father. Their last name was always Piper, it was never Cromwell. That was always Aggie and Gwen's last names, not the kids. I mean, Gwen had the last name Piper too, but just trying to settle that score for you. So yeah, in this movie, there's this supposed character named Splendor Cromwell, which they reveal is Aggie, and I have a serious problem with that one. Because by saying that her name is Cromwell, you are confusing us by saying whether her maiden name is Cromwell or her married name is Cromwell. A little confusing, people. Let's see. The personality of Marnie is completely different from the last 2 movies. Kimberly J. Brown's Marnie was always, confident, bold, brave, and smart, and could possibly spot deception a mile away. Whereas Paxton, bless her heart, I give her credit for trying to pull this role off. But she's cowardly, timid, and basically a ditz. Meaning, she has no sense of importance. She's basically not Marnie. But I do give her credit for trying to pull this role off. Let's see, what else do I want to mention? Let's see. J. Paul Zimmerman, I said, is back in this one as Dylan, and he is almost a completely different character from the last 2 movies. Because in the last three, Dylan was always kind of funny and sarcastic. Like, he would always use sarcastic remarks at Marnie, and he doesn't really do them in this one. And to be honest, Paxton and Zimmerman they're not as believable as brother and sister, I think, in my opinion. And also in the last three movies, Dylan never really used his powers because he always hated being a warlock. So he never really used his powers that often. He only used them when it's absolutely necessary. This movie, we find out one of the reasons why. Because he only uses magic speed read. Okay. I really didn't give a care. But, okay. Let's see what else. I already mentioned they ignore the boyfriend. This movie basically rips off plot points and dialogue and whatnot from other movies and shows, because there's a scene where Marnie is trying to open the box that contains this mystical power, and she's basically ripping off I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched within the span of 2 seconds. It's like, really? And then they say that the only way to destroy this magical power was that it was created by 3 Cromwells and can only be destroyed by 3 Cromwells. Yeah, let's see. Where have I heard that plot point before? Oh yeah, it's called Lord of the Rings. Congratulations, Halloweentown, you got from being original to ripping off other movies. Congratulations. Let's see, I'm not sure if I mentioned this yet, but the title of this movie was actually the original working title for the second movie. Way to recycle the title. Let's see what else. Like I said, I think I've said this, that Judith Hoag and Jake Zimmerman are the only two to actually reprise their roles from the series. I mean, aside from Debbie Reynolds' cameo, I think I mentioned that earlier. I just didn't. In all fairness, I didn't like this movie. Honestly, this series should have ended as a trilogy, and this movie was a disgrace to the series. It should never have existed. To be honest, and actually, the funny part is, a magazine, I think it's a magazine or whatever called BuzzFeed, stated that the first 3 movies are the best thing about Halloween, and that the 4th film was best ignored. MTV, they pretty much said everyone should pretend the Return to Halloweentown never happened due to the recasting. And I actually agree with both statements. That this movie never happened. It was a fluke. But did I hate watching it? Oh yeah. Mostly because this movie has little to do with the last year movies. Now, if they wanted to do, you know what? If they wanted to do another movie, fine. But if you're not going to have your leads in it, and you're not going to stay to the continuity of the last 3 movies, to quote Film Master Adam J., to all filmmakers out there and all future filmmakers out there, if you're opting to do a sequel, you know what helps? Continuity. This movie has very little of it. And also, to borrow what he said from his, I think it was his Halloween Resurrection review, that if you ended your story and you wanted to do another movie, why didn't you just do a reboot? Which, you know what, I'd have been fine with a Halloweentown reboot, and, you know, I'd have been fine with it. Because the story ended perfectly with the end of the 3rd movie, so I would have been fine with a reboot. But, sadly, Disney wanted to railroad another sequel into the series after the last one's conclusive ending, but it exists. What are you going to do? You know what? I advise all fans of Halloweentown to just ignore this movie. Just pretend it never happened. Like I plan to do. So I guess I'll catch you guys later. And hopefully next week I'll be back with an even better movie. See ya.